Hi, this is James Gordon O'Toole here with the third book in the Jack Ryan and John Clark series. The book I'll be talking about today, Red Rabbit by Tom Clancy. This is from G.B. Pullman's Sons, and this was published in August 5th, 2002. This was an absolutely disappointing novel. Before I began with this series, I remember hearing from a few of the Tom Clancy fans how much they disliked this novel, and told me to just skip it because it was not really an important book they considered in the series. And I was like, well, I'm still going to check it out, and since this is the last prequel book in the series, and then all the other books are sequels, so I figured I would just get this one out of the way, and maybe I might enjoy it. However, they were right. This book is terrible. This is one of the most boring, dullest thrillers I've ever read, and there's not even any frills or suspense in this book. I couldn't believe how boring this book got. I was already bored with it by the 200-300 page mark, and nothing happens in this novel. Nothing exciting happens until the very, very end, which this book is 680 pages long, and this is ridiculous. A book this thick should have twists and turns, frills, suspense, and action. But there's none of that in this book, and I'm very curious why Clancy even wrote this book the way he wrote it. And the way he wrote it, it feels so dry and just nothing exciting to write home about. It's like, Clancy, what the hell were you doing when you wrote this book? What were you doing? I really found the whole writing structure not that good. The characters feel flat and dull. They're not likable. Even the main character, Jack Ryan himself, is just very boring in this book. And there's so many issues and problems I have with this book. This thing is a disaster. The whole plot of this book falls flat, as it has nothing to build upon, and it's just overall a terrible book. And I agree with the Tom Clancy fans. This is just a book to skip. If you ever decide to do this series, just avoid this one. It's not even worth reading. Oh man, this book was an absolute chore to get through. It's just one of the worst books I have read so far in the series. Alright, I'll explain more about this book later on my review. Alright, on to the book review. Plot. Set 5 months after the events of Patriot Games, Jack Ryan, along with his wife Kathy, daughter Sally, and son Ryan Jr., have moved to London, where Ryan has been reassigned to aid SIS Secret Intelligence Service. Despite getting used to driving on the wrong side of the road in his new Jaguar, Ryan is looking forward to returning back to his homeland in Maryland after he's done here. To help him out is his FBI friend Dan Murray, who enjoys giving him company and taking Ryan to the pub after his first day on the job, his boss of SIS, Basil Charleston. Meanwhile, in Poland, Pope John Paul II privately issues a letter to the communist Polish government. He will resign from the papacy and return to his homeland in Rome unless they cease their repression of counter-revolutionary movements in Poland, along with the Solidarity Trade Union that wants to break away from the USSR and make Poland a free state again. When news of this letter reaches the KGB director, Yuri Andropov, as it would threaten their operations with Poland, as the West would gain more power over them. Yuri plans to assassinate the Pope and has Colonel Godarek go to Rome to plan out the hit, as Yuri is told he can get someone within 5 meters of the Pope. At the same time, in Washington, D.C., Deputy Director James Greer of the CIA has learned about this planned assassination from a double agent, as he wants Ryan to work with SIS to prevent this hit from happening. However, Robert Bob Ritter, DDO, Deputy Director Operations, dislikes Ryan and doesn't believe he has what it takes, but James is confident that Ryan has what it takes to prove himself worthy of the CIA. After going over the area and detailing everything in his report, Yuri and the other members of the KGB discuss the plan of assassinating the Pope. The members believe they should avoid using any of their own weapons or men, as it would link their country, causing unwanted political drama and investigation. One KGB member said the best way to pull off the hit is to use an assassin with no ties to their country or organization. After thinking it over, Yuri calls a number for an assassin known by his code number 1582666. The killer is a Turk, a Muslim who won't have any ties with the KGB, and should he fail, the assassination will look like a hate crime. Meanwhile, Moscow CIA agent Ed Foley is working with a double agent who is sending him data within the Kremlin. Foley sends the data back to London, but fears the KGB will discover their double agent, and if so, needs to get him back safely. After getting nowhere and not doing much most of his time at SIS, Ryan, fed up, demands to know where SIS is getting its data from and wants to be part of the team. After some arguing and waiting, Ryan is finally given the chance to prove himself by aiding SIS, helps smuggle a double agent under the codename Rabbit, as Ryan has to help him and his family sneak out of the country as he has information regarding the assassination plot of the Pope. However, the KGB is aware of this spy and sends their men to hunt down the Rabbit and kill him along with his family. Can Ryan and the SIS agents save Rabbit and his family along with stopping the assassination plan? It's a race against time. Red Rabbit was one of the most boring and dullest thrillers I've ever read. Hardly anything happens until the very end of this thick novel. Characters felt flat, dull, and unlikable. Not even Jack Ryan was interesting, as he hardly does anything than just talk to other characters. The story follows too much of the day-to-day lives of the characters with no scenes of action or suspense, as these scenes just drag on for too long. Pacing was slow, and having to read references to past events that didn't tie in with the story made it a chore to read through them. Little bits of drama didn't make it interesting either, and the whole plot of the KGB plan to assassinate the Pope was the weakest idea ever. They go through all the trouble to hide their tracks to ensure nobody will find out they planned this assassination, and yet it isn't anything to write home about, since Clancy used the real-life failed assassination of Pope John Paul II, and doesn't make it interesting. He literally just adds his characters to a real life event and doesn't change it up. The more I read this, it began to feel like a watered down version of The Day of the Jackal. However, unlike Frederick Forsyth's novel that adds a fictional plot to real life events, Clancy does the opposite and fails to make it interesting or add more to it. I was also annoyed when characters just kept talking about MI6 spy James Bond, but they never mention a film or a novel. They just keep talking about this fictional character, and at one point Ryan tries to be like James Bond during his mission. This annoyed me, as I'd rather Ryan act himself and not trying to be a spy. Too many scenes of conversations that really bored me, and hardly anything happened within the story. I was starting to wonder why Ryan had to move over to England to work for the British when he joins the CIA in Patriot Games, as a few parts didn't make much sense. Also, there is a major error within this novel, as Clancy mentions kids watching the cartoon show The Transformers. However, this show didn't come out until September 17, 1984. Red Rabbit takes place in 1982. I wish Clancy did his research on 80s TV shows and cartoons before just picking one without double-checking the release date. Lastly, Clancy tries adding a subplot of Ryan helping a spy under the alias Rabbit escape with his family along with faking their deaths, as this wasn't interesting nor felt like a real challenge, and the finale was a huge bore. Just like the real-life event that happened to Pope John Paul II, he survives his assassination and nothing else happens. I don't get what Tom Clancy saw with this novel. I wish he wrote something else or just take a break before writing out his next novel, as this is a complete fail. Nothing memorable about it, and it's forgettable after you're done reading it, and it's a waste of time, just like what the characters said when they were wasting their time in their offices doing nothing. Overall, I don't recommend Red Rabbit. It's a complete bore and has nothing to offer nor anything interesting about it. Just skip it if you plan on reading the Jack Ryan and John Clark series, as this novel isn't important nor play a major role in the series. Not worth reading at all. That's a review today. Yeah, this is just another short and simple one because there's not much else to talk with this book. It's a complete bore. I couldn't believe how boring this book was. I was at like the I think yesterday I was at the 200-page mark. Then I got to the 300-page mark, and this book was getting so boring. I decided to plow through it to be done with it because there was nothing exciting happening within this book. It's just Clancy focuses way too much on the day-to-day lives of these characters, and it isn't until the very end when things start to finally happen, but it's nothing to write home about, as I said. And as I said in my review, this book feels like a watered-down version of The Day of the Jackal, which is a way better book than this one. And unlike what Frederick Forsyth did, which he made it very interesting by adding this fictional assassination plot, and you follow the different characters as you got characters working against the law, and you got the characters working against. Then you got the law enforcement characters trying to stop the terrorists. That was interesting to follow these characters, what they were planning, and how they were doing how they're going about doing their day. Clancy does the opposite. He focuses way too much on the good guys, hardly on the Russians, and not once are we ever introduced to this assassin. He's not till the very end where he's finally revealed, and it's just boring. It's so boring. I thought, come on, Clancy, you could have made a whole fictional assassination plot instead of just throwing your characters into this real life event. Like, I didn't get that. Like, he's never really done that with any of his other books, so why do it with this one? This book was a real chore to get through. Like, the writing structure I was not really impressed with. It just feels very dry and boring, as I said, and the characters are so flat and dull. There's nothing to like about them. Like, even the main character, Ryan, he's just boring. All he does is just talk with people. That's all he does. He doesn't do anything interesting. And while this book does take place in like, different country stuff, Clancy doesn't bother like going the extra detail within these countries, so it's very futurist. Like he says, the characters went here, but he doesn't really describe much of detail where they at, so it's very futurist scenes in the book. And there's hardly any action in this book. There's none. It isn't until I said the very end of this book, and I'm like, if you're gonna do a thriller or a suspense spy thriller, even, you gotta put action in the story. You gotta have things happening. If you don't add anything to the very end, you're gonna have the reader very bored and not even want to pick up another book after reading it. Like when I started this series, I've already been told by Clancy fans that this was one of the worst books in the series, and some even told me just to skip it. However, I haven't read these other books before, and this is considered this is the last prequel / sequel book in the series, so I decided to just get this one out of the way and see what I think of it. And they weren't kidding. This book is terrible. I don't know what Clancy was thinking when he wrote this book. He could have done something way better, or just taken some time off before writing his next book. As I was trying to find some reviews to see if it gave it any insight why Clancy wrote this novel, and I didn't find anything about. I didn't find any interviews of him giving his reason why he wrote Red Rabbit. However, I did find one funny review by CNN who disliked this book, and the person reviewing the book said he found it way more interesting watching two families move into their new homes and what kind of coffee Jack Ryan should drink before starting his day. Like he said he found those scenes way more interesting than the actual plot of the book itself, and I was just laughing at how funny this was. And as I said, there's several scenes that don't make much sense, like why does Ryan have to go back to England to help aid the British when he joins the CSI after the events of Patriot Games? He should be, staying over in the States, not coming back to Britain again. I didn't get that, and there are some others, and the scenes of where the SIS are working with the spy, it never it does feature this spy character, but it doesn't reveal halfway through the book when it's revealed, oh, this is what this character is doing. Because when Clancy first introduced this character, it's just some Russian guy that's just has a wife and daughter, and he just goes to work, and he doesn't reveal what he's doing until later on in the story. Why are we following this character? What role does he have to play in the story? But it's not until halfway through the novel which Clancy explains what the character is doing. I thought you could have revealed this guy's a spy early on, then waiting halfway through the book to reveal what he's doing and what role he plays out in the story. And then there's the whole subplot of Jack Ryan having to help the spy and his family escape the USSR and come over to England. And this scene was an absolute bore. Hardly anything challenged or exciting. Ryan and the SIS, they easily help the spy and his family escape the country. They fake their deaths, and they easily get them out. No problem. There's no challenge, nothing. And by the time the KGB finds out about it, they don't do anything. It's like, this book is just so boring. I really hated reading this thing. As I said, the pacing is slow, so there's several scenes where the author adds a lot of historical references, and they don't play any part in the role of the story. And Several times I had to put this book down, not because to take a break. I was just so bored of it. I was losing interest and getting easily distracted by other things, and like that's a bad sign. If you're unable to grasp the reader's attention and make him or her interested in the book, and they're constantly having to put it down because they're getting bored by it, that's a sign that you got a bad book on your hands. And I really wish the publisher read this thing and submitted back to Clancy and basically asked him to either come up with something else or make improvements to the story, because this thing is a complete bore. So overall, I would not recommend reading Red Rabbit. If you ever go to do the Jack Ryan series, just skip this book entirely. It's not worth reading. It's forgettable. It's completely forgettable. It has nothing redeeming about it. In fact, I have no interest reading this book again. Once was enough. Having to read this 600-page brick of a novel is not worth going back to. It has nothing redeeming about it. So, if you ever plan to do the Jack Ryan and John Clark series, skip Red Rabbit. It's not worth reading at all. Just stick to the other books in the series. Alright, that's it for the review today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm hoping this is the last bad book in the series. I'm hoping the later books get better. As I've been told by Clancy fans, the later books get much better, so that's what I'm looking forward to. But I'll be starting the next book in the series, The Hunt for October. I read this book a very long time ago, and I'm looking forward to reading this book again, and I'm actually going to pull out the Jack Ryan movies so I can watch those again. And after I read this book, all the later books will be new to me, so I'm looking forward to reading the rest of the books in this series. Alright, that's a review today. I hope you enjoyed it, and please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to October Library, the YouTube channel where I post book reviews, book hauls, and art fiction-related content. Until then, I'll catch you later.